of the world to innervate, which means to take away our energy gradually. And spiritual life means we have to take responsibility for keeping steady until we develop a kind of spontaneity. And that requires some tenaciousness. And one of the most important places to apply that principle is in chanting japa, because in some ways we stand alone against the mind and all the forces of the world. On the other hand, we're not alone because, first of all, japa is the most recommended of processes. Chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa in general, but as it's mentioned in Rupa Goswami's Ashtakam about the holy name, he says, Ayamukta Kaleru Pasyamanam. That the great liberated souls all take time to chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. And also, Shukadeva Goswami begins the Bhagavatam in his teachings by using the word nirnitam, which means that it's already been settled up. Don't worry, I'm giving you the essence here. It's been settled up by all the great teachers said this is the main place to put your attention. So it's helpful to remember when performing the activity of japa that the best of all authorities have vetted this and are recommending it. And then we can feel satisfied, even if we're not satisfied by the quality of our japa, we can be so satisfied that we're in the activity and that we're doing the right thing, even though the mind may say in the mode of passion that you should be moving more and you should try to find something more productive. Isn't there anything more productive than just sitting here and chanting? And we can remember that the greatest of authorities, those who are already liberated from the material world, say, no, there is no greater activity than chanting. And finally, the Shastra says, Atashi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriye Seva Mukhi Jivado Swayameva Spuratyada. This adao means like, where do I begin? And Padma Purana says, begin with your tongue. And the best way to begin with your tongue is to do seva. And the best seva is, amazingly, just to repeat the names, Hare Kṛṣṇa Rāma, Haribol. Shri Harinam Prabhu ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Krishna Krishna Hare Kṛṣṇa. I just want to go a little more into this verse. Etan nirvidyamananam ichatam akatobayam yoginam nripanirnitam Hare Rāma Kirtanam. It's spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, and he's encouraging Parikshit Maharaj. Prabhu, is there something that could be done about this? We uncharacteristically have a sliding mic. That there's the phrase ichatam akatobayam. So bhayam means fear, and this is the all-pervading feature of the material world. There's fear everywhere because bhayam dvitiya abhinibeshita syad. Kavi Yogendra says, because I see something different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore I fear. And there's a sense that I'm going to lose my existence or that I'm going to be cheated or exploited, and we're always on guard. We're always fearful in the material world. And so by chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, we can become fearless, and that's because there's only one place that we can actually take shelter, and that's in reality. And Krishna is the supreme reality. When we're able to hear the holy name, is there a cure for this? Or should it's sliding this way. If I take shelter of Krishna, then there's no fear. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ma shuchaha, don't worry, don't fear, don't hesitate. Everything else outside of taking shelter of Krishna completely 100% means, say there's 2% left over. To that degree, I'll have fear in this material world because I'm going it on my own. So in chanting Hare Krishna, we're declaring that, I don't know if you noticed this, but this, I'm just trying to say, oh, I see, you got that. We need an engineer. I think he fixed it. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm changing the stand.
Yeah, I think he fixed it.
Okay.
Still? Okay. So, Śrīla Prabhupāda is called A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Abhay Caraṇāravinda. So, he takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, where there's no fear, Abhay. And there's an acronym. The acronym FEAR stands for fear everything and run. And then you can turn it the other way if you take shelter of Krishna, face everything and rise. And that's the modus operandi of somebody who feels fortified and protected by Krishna. Like Prabhupada, he faced everything and he rose. So if we're able to take shelter of Krishna and say, it's your power, it's not mine, and I completely hand over myself to you, I don't want anything for myself, it's all for your service, then we become fearless. And the best way to declare that again and again is Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. So that's how to become fearless, is to put it all in Krishna's hands and say that you take care of me, you maintain me, I'm just going to be your servant, that's it. Otherwise, there's anxiety and fear everywhere in the material world. And there's one other element that I think is very important in chanting with full intention, that is to feel part of Lord Chaitanya's mission. When I'm thinking about why aren't I getting some taste, I'm chanting, but how come I'm not feeling ecstasy? Then I'll start getting mental. It's like, oh, I can't chant. But if we're thinking about spreading the Sankirtan movement when we're chanting, that how is it that everyone can have an opportunity to come in contact with this? There's a sense of a mission in the chanting that let me do good for others. Krishna, please empower me to be able to help other people. It's a completely different feeling and flow than thinking, why aren't I getting some spiritual bliss here? And if we can lean into that mood and have some stake in the Sankirtan movement, and as we're chanting, have a underlying prayer that please let this Sankirtan movement spread everywhere in the world. Please use me as an instrument to spread the holy name to as many people as possible. Then we'll be able to have a taste in chanting the holy name, even if we're not very, we don't consider ourselves very advanced, because it's a very advanced mood to think, how can I give this to other people? So those are two separate thoughts, one about fear and one about mission. We'll just take a couple of reflections and we'll go back to chanting.
I really like the acronym Face Everything and Rise. And it reminded me of one of the series of lectures you gave, Take Conscious Control of our life, of your life. So, because we all in our lives will invariably face difficulties. So, it's always good to preemptively have this attitude of face everything and rise. So, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, because there's so many anxieties. What if I do this? What if that happens? But if we take shelter of Krishna and say, I'll face everything, and just leave it up to Krishna, whatever the result is, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, then life becomes a daring adventure. Take on one fearful situation after another, but depend on the holy name for whatever comes. Yes, Malini. Thank you, Aparagarangi.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It was such a relief to know that we don't have to strive for the taste, but because thinking that that's such an exalted position, but instead we can focus our energy to pray to Krishna that how can I be engaged so that more people can come and get some taste for the holy name. So that was because it's always there in the back of my mind. How come I don't have taste for chanting? How come I don't have taste? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I am doing something wrong, but this was such a nice relief. Thank you.
Yeah, when you're serving prasadam, you're always in ecstasy. You forget that you're hungry even. But if you're sitting there waiting, it's like, I only have rice here. Where is everybody? Where's the chana? Then it's like anxiety all the time. 2 more? Yes, Prabhu. That's all right, they'll bring it to you.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Yeah, I was listening to you when you said about fearless, and you used to say that material world is all risk and no gain, and spiritual life is all gain and no risk, and also it's like gambling. When you put everything in the spiritual life, you will never lose, and no risk. And from that came that we are fearless with this process. So
yeah, you can double down on your, because Krishna keeps saying these things like, don't worry about it. If you double down on me, then I'll always be there for you. Yeah. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I like that, when we need to be fearless, we just need to put ourselves in Krishna's hand. Because when we try to take care about ourselves, like a self-care help, there are hundreds and thousands of ways and you still fall short. So it's much better to put yourself under, higher authority who can take care about you much, much better than which you can think of. So I'm just feeling much relieved rather than worrying about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Maybe if I've done this thing, then this would have worked, this thing. All the time, trying to optimize with self-care, that doesn't work. So I think it's much better. Then I could be more fearless. So I really like that point.
Yeah. We don't do self-applied dentistry. It's like, yeah, I'll take care of myself. Good luck with your teeth. You have to go to an expert and say, how to, please find the right one that knows how to do it, and then just put your trust there. And Krishna knows how to do everything, and that's the process for fearlessness. Govindacharan. Okay. Gaur Premanande Haribol. So we can remember that every anxiety that we have, or what about this, how am I going to look when I do that, how am I going to overcome this obstacle or that obstacle, there's always something on the horizon. But if we just say, Krishna, it's in your hands, I'm going to serve you and do the best I can, and I'll take shelter of the holy name, Apana samsritim goranya nama vivashogranam tata sadyo vimucheta yab bhibheti swayambayam. Then there's no fear. You can keep calling on Krishna that just directly, like, here's a fearful situation, what do I do? That's what they do in Vrindavan. So we'll try that. Gaur Premanande Haribol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
In conclusion, anytime you feel anxiety or fear, then take shelter of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare. Try first to take full shelter rather than delegating it to the mind or the intelligence that please figure this out, how to get out of this mess, how to overcome this obstacle. And if first instinct is, I'll leave it to Krishna and I'll follow whatever he says. And in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna assures us that if we're always taking his direction, then we'll never be lost in the material world. We'll be able to navigate our way forward. Does that sound like a good plan? Yes. And also, since we were given this little postage stamp size project here in the middle of Silicon Valley, we should feel free to think expansively about how the whole world is one big coursing body with veins and everything, and we want to inject within those veins transcendental knowledge through book distribution. So we have to become doctors and figure out, see the world as one big body, and how to hook up an IV in all the appropriate places so that the insanity of the world becomes reduced by the expansive distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and the holy names. What do you think? Haribo, Vanchakalpataruscha, Kripasindhabhe, Vachapajitanam, Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
That'll be IV from ISV.
Leave it to Govinda Charan Prabhu.